What up, Homedawgs? My name is Gokey Gamer, coach of the Milwaukee Meta Champs, and welcome one and all to the CMM Mudkip Division Draft Breakdown. Firstly, I apologize this video went up so late, not gonna lie. This week has been a lot for me, and I spent a lot of time scripting this out, so that's why it's going up on Monday instead of Saturday. I apologize. I'm really excited and honored to be taking part in this league, as we'll be taking on a lot of extremely talented coaches for the first time in this very positive community. And while of course I'm looking to prove myself and continue taking W's, I'm also hoping to keep improving as a team prepper and battler, and I think all of these coaches will help me do just that. Overall, the rules are pretty standard. Top 8 make playoffs, the drafting will be a snake style, 16 coaches, all that fun stuff. Coaches have 120 points to draft between 9 and 11 Pokemon, and each team is allowed 1 to 3 Terra Captains that may terrestrialize into 3 selected types. One of them has to be Stab. The total cost of the Terra Captains will be 20, with each Captain's value being a max of 13. Some Pokemon that are below 13 points will be banned, such as Garganacl, Basculation, Espathra, and Superior. We're allowed to make 5 free agent transactions, and we're no longer allowed to trade after week 6. And the usual battle rules apply. Only Dry Baton Pass is allowed, no evasion boosting moves, no Mega Stone, Z-moves, or Dynamaxing. Terrestrialization is allowed with the Terra Captains. The usual item bans like King's Rock, Bright Powder, and Razor Fang. Only 1 Pokemon put to sleep, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Very standard rule sets, but just wanted to go through them just in case you were interested. Now, without any further ado, let's get into the draft breakdown and, well, the sort of theme that we've decided to go for this draft league. So a couple of weeks before this draft even started, I had an idea for a theme that I could base my draft league team on. This idea wasn't based off a Pokemon character or a monotype team like I've had in the past, but instead around one simple question. Can I prove myself as a hater wrong? See, there's a certain Pokemon in draft that many people consider straight up ban-worthy, and granted it can be a pretty good Pokemon under the right circumstances. However, in my opinion, not only can those circumstances be quite rare, but there are also so many ways to counter or avenge against this Pokemon that it's nearly impossible to actually pull off what it's best at, sweeping teams. Now, I don't consider myself an amazing battler by any means, but what if somehow I could actually prove myself wrong about this Pokemon by drafting it? And on top of that, can I build a team around supporting it and open as many doors as I can to sweeping with it? Well, considering this Pokemon was only worth 18 points compared to the usual 20, I decided now was a good time as any to give this Pokemon a shot. So despite the fact that I ended up being smack dab in the middle of the draft order, being 8 out of 16, I actually managed to grab this Pokemon. Everybody, I'd like to introduce you to the Pokemon that I consider to be one of the most mid Pokemon ever in draft, Mid-Horse the Spectrier. Now on paper, Spectrier's stats and ability look absolutely insane. Base 130 speed, 145 special attack, and even base 100 HP, along with stab, ghost type attacks, draining kiss, and their signature ability Grim Neigh, means that once you grab even 1 KO with this mon, Spectrier can just go nuts and claim lives. However, once you take a look at this dead horse's lackluster moveset, defenses, and pure ghost typing, you start noticing some pretty crucial weaknesses. Specifically, these right here. Not only are these quite a few weaknesses that can either slow down or straight up wall Spectrier, but a number of these are quite common. The scariest counter by far are normal types, specifically normal types with an assault vest. Many normal types don't even need to equip an AV to be a great wall for Spectrier, and even fully offensive mons like Mousehold and Ambipom can be the perfect Spectrier counter. Another type that can kind of fill this role are dark types. While ghost type moves are still semi-spammable and one of Spectrier's few coverage moves is Drain Kiss, which is super effective against dark types, bulky dark type Pokemon can still take hits rather well, while also dealing super effective stab damage back. Overall, not a fun time. And honestly, any Pokemon with an assault vest can be a pretty decent wall, especially if they already have a lot of natural special defense. Choice Scarfers, Sticky Webs, and Trick Room users can also be an issue. If a Pokemon outspeeds Spectrier, there's a good chance Spectrier just dies to it, especially if it's a physical attacker. And finally, certain priority moves like Sucker Punch and Shadow Sneak could also be devastating to the Ghost Horse. While not as reliable as normal and dark types to counter Spectrier, priority moves and speed control can revenge Spectrier fairly easily. All in all, there are a lot of ways to counter this ban-worthy Pokemon. However, I do know with the right team and the right coach, Spectrier can still become an unstoppable force. I've seen Spectrier become the kill leader of not just the draft league team, but the entire draft league itself, grabbing the most KOs out of any other Pokemon in the entire league. So despite the fact that Spectrier has so many counters, and I am a certified hater of it, I have seen it do quite well, and it appears the secret is we've got to build a team that complements Spectrier. From here on out, here are the things I'm looking for in a teammate. Knockoff users are absolutely crucial for this team to get rid of AVs and Scarves, as well as deal a decent amount of damage. Speaking of damage, hard-hitting fighting types are also extremely important to hard counter the normal and dark types that we'll undoubtedly see. Hazard stackers and hazard removers are also quite nice, not just for setting up and removing webs, but also spikes and stealth rocks as well. Disruptors also fit this category. If we can do things like burn, poison, paralyze, and encore our opponents, they'll be much easier to eventually take out. The more chip we can get on our opponent's Pokemon, the more likely Spectrier can get some sweeps. Having slow Pokemon that can help take advantage of Trick Room, as well as possibly a Trick Room user ourselves, could also prove to be quite useful as well to help counter other Trick Room teams. If we can find Pokemon with pivoting moves like Volt Switch and U-Turn, that could also help Spectrier come in for free and fire off a very heavy hit. While this is extremely niche in Gen 9, having Psychic Terrain users could not only boost Spectrier's Psychic, another one of the few coverage moves they get, but also prevent priority moves from being clicked, as that's the other effect of Psychic Terrain. Having our own normal type to absorb any opposing Ghost type moves is also quite nice, and while another Ghost type isn't necessary, it could be nice to use another Ghost type to directly weaken checks to Spectrier without risking Spectrier themselves, as well as provide a more reliable Rapid Spin blocker to prevent any hazards we set up from disappearing. With all of these notes in mind, I actually have quite a few options to choose from by the time my second pick comes around. So instead of immediately going for a hard-hitting fighting type, I decided to go for another Pokemon that I knew would quickly diminish in availability: the Fairy type. And not only did I pick a Fairy type that fits quite a few of my requirements, it's also a Pokemon that I've really loved using in the past. That Pokemon being Pinky the Clefable. While on the surface Clefable's stats aren't anything to write home about, Clefable's moveset and abilities are really what makes her stand out. Having both Magic Guard and Unaware as abilities, as well as the ability to Wish Pass, Healing Wish, Knock Off, and have an immense amount of coverage and disrupting moves makes Clefable fit nearly any role I'd need her to fill. I think Clefable combined with Spectrier can provide quite the devastating duo, and I'm very excited to have Pinky back on the team. Now for the next pick, since there are still a lot of powerful fighting types available, I wanted to focus my efforts on getting a Pokemon that really wants to spam Knock Off. While having bulky chippers with Knock Off is nice, having a Pokemon that clicks Knock Off and deal a crap ton of damage at the same time could be extremely nice to pair up with Spectrier. On top of that, if that Pokemon was a fast Dark type, having that stab while also moving quick and being immune to Psychic type attacks for a future fighting type would pair up with the team phenomenally. So as a result, I decided to go ahead and pick up none other than King Louie the Zarude. Unfortunately, Zarude is not allowed to Terra in this league, otherwise I would have made this a Terra captain immediately, but even without Terra, Zarude can be surprisingly bulky. It also hits extremely hard with a base 120 attack and 105 speed, easily clicks Knock Off, and can even pivot out with U-Turn or cause some disruption if I need that type of set as well. A Pokemon that can be surprisingly bulky or a devastating physical attacker with Stab Knockoff fits extremely well on this team in my opinion, and I'm super excited to give Zarude a shot. After I grabbed Zarude, I already had an idea of what Pokemon I wanted to grab next. I really wanted to grab an absolute tank of a Pokemon that could also set up hazards, cause disruption, and slow pivot. And this particular Pokemon is one where the more I looked at it, the more excited I got at the idea of using it. For our fourth pick, I'd like to introduce you all to none other than Alan the Deoxys Defense. With insanely defensive stats and quite frankly quite the decent offensive stats as well, I think Deoxys Defense fits my playstyle extremely well. For those of you who have been watching my SDA season, you'll know how good I am at using Terra Deancey. And while Deoxys isn't a Terra Captain or a Fairy type, you'll notice that Deoxys' stats are quite similar in their spread. On top of that, Deoxys has arguably better moveset and they don't have a quad weakness to Steel. I really think this mon is going to be phenomenal at shipping teams down, possibly being a surprise revenger, and just in general causing havoc against my opponents. Hopefully I enjoy using Deoxys as much as I've enjoyed using Deancey. After grabbing Deoxys, I decided my next target would be a tried and true target for me, a Pokemon with sticky webs. Having my own sticky web setter would not only help neutralize webs my opponent might bring, but also help neutralize Scarf users, which would be absolutely amazing for Spectrier. I briefly considered Araquanid, but instead I actually decided to pick up Taser the Vikavolt. The main reason I decided to go with Vikavolt over Araquanid is because I really like the pivoting potential with Volt Switch, as well as the ability to spam special attacks to hopefully help chip down special walls for Spectrier. With enough decent coverage to help with checks, I'm hoping Vikavolt can put in work as a second special nuke to really help break walls down, as well as be a great pivoter that can set up webs. After this pick, I decided it was finally time to grab my big fighting type, as while I didn't think I would get sniped, I still didn't want to risk it possibly being picked up by somebody else. There was still a large number of Pokemon that I was looking at to fill this role, such as Terrakion, Keldeo, Mienshao, and Iron Hands. However, the Pokemon that I ended up deciding to grab and also make my first Terra Captain of the team is Big Top the Conkeldurr. This Pokemon just simply hits like an absolute freight train with a base 140 attack and also has access to the abilities Guts, Sheer Force, and Iron Fist. Combine that with Terra Fighting, Steel, and Psychic, and you have a nigh unstoppable force that most Pokemon really don't enjoy taking a hit from. The Terra Psychic will make more sense later on, don't worry. On top of that, despite Conkeldurr's slow speed, it has access to the move Mach Punch, a move that has a +1 priority, meaning unless our opponents click a priority move of their own, we'll always get an extremely heavy hit off on something before ultimately going down. Combine this with access to Knock Off, Stab Drain Punch, great coverage, hazard removal with Defog, and a fairly decent bulk, you've got a Pokemon that's the perfect partner for Spectrier. Hopefully Conkeldurr will really prove its usefulness on this team. After finally securing my fighting type, I decided that I should go ahead and grab a grounded poison type next. Specifically, I was trying to decide between two picks, Toxapex and Alolan Muck. While these two Pokemon were typically played very differently, I still saw value in both of these picks. Alolan Muck gave me a hard hitter, another knockoff user, poison touch, and pretty decent coverage, while Toxapex gave me more bulk, regenerator, toxic spikes, and a water type. As a result, I took quite a lot of heavy consideration for this pick, and even talked to some other draft league players about both options. And after some heavy debating within the Milwaukee Metachamps headquarters, we finally ended up deciding on none other than Merciful the Toxapex. Excuse me, hold on a second. Yeah, hey, what's the meaning of this? Wait, are you serious? They canceled their contract with us. Well, that's disappointing. So much for the Pokemon named Merciful. In actuality, while I did decide to pick up Toxapex, I found myself struggling to actually build with her during my preparations for our Week 1 match due to her loss of knockoff this generation, as well as an extremely lackluster moveset. On top of that, I also watched the 2 power rankings that took place for this league, and 2 critiques from both were an overall lack of power on my team besides Conkeldurr and Spectrier, and in general, Toxapex just didn't really fit this team that well because of that. And after attempting to build for Week 1 and looking towards future battles, I couldn't help but agree in hindsight. So as a result, I ended up dropping Merciful the Toxapex after our Week 1 game and instead grabbed I Like Kip the Swampert to take her place. While this does get rid of her grounded poison type, I do make one other trade that you'll see later on that gives me a grounded poison type back, so stay tuned for that. In the meantime, let's talk about Swampert. Swampert gives me a ground type, which while I didn't desperately need, is still very valuable, especially now that I can spam Stab, Earthquakes, Waterfalls, and Flip turns very reliably. Swampert's high attack, great HP, decent bulk, and only one weakness to grass also gives me a very reliable tank that can very easily and reliably chip down opponents and be a nuisance for my opponents to try and take out. Swampert also has reliable coverage, knockoff, and can also set up stealth rocks as well. On top of that, the grass type weakness isn't even a big deal on this team, as you'll soon see that we have a lot of reliable switch-ins for grass type attacks. I think Swampert will prove to be a very crucial member of this team as a chipper and perhaps even as an offensive nuke on occasion. After this pick, I decided it was finally time to grab a certain Pokemon I've been looking at for a while now. While this Pokemon fits an extremely niche role that isn't always reliable, in my opinion it could fit a Spectrier team extremely well. And that Pokemon is none other than the butler and maid, Indeedee. The extremely nice thing about Indeedee in this league is we actually have access to both of their forms, which could prove to be extremely useful in prep. The main thing to note about Indeedee is its Psychic Surge ability, which sets up the Psychic Terrain immediately upon switching, perfect for synergy with Spectrier and Deoxys defense. This is also the reason I opted for Terra Psychic on Conkeldurr as well. Not only does Indeedee provide Psychic Terrain, but they could also get a surprising amount of disrupting and coverage moves that could prove very useful for the rest of my team. They also give me access to a normal type of my own so that I have a Pokemon immune to ghost type attacks, another reason why this mon pairs up so well with Spectrier. The only major gripe about this pick is that Psychic Terrain would prevent the use of our own Mach Punch on Conkeldurr, but that's also why I'm hoping Vikavolt will be able to come in and clutch with the webs, so that Conkeldurr doesn't have to rely purely on Mach Punch as much. I'm really excited to use Indeedee on this team, as I think they're going to do an amazing job at causing havoc for my opponents and force a lot more prep. After this pick, I wanted to grab a Pokemon that could help remove hazards, so that way I didn't have to fully rely on Conkeldurr clicking Defog, which could also remove our hazards and or screens. And conveniently, we could still use a fire type. And the rock type. If you know me, you know where this is going. Welcome, Volga the Colossal, back on the team, baby! If you've been a fan of my channel for a while, you'll know how much I love using this Pokemon. I've even used her back in Gen 8 to a surprising amount of success, and just recently won my first ever championship with her playing a crucial role on my team. A fantastic wall that can either be physical or special, an amazing hazard setter and remover, and a mon that can even perform as a mixed attacker with 3 extremely amazing abilities and only priced at 4 points. This is our second Terra Captain, and she's rocking the same Terra types that we had in the SPDA Master Ball division, being Fire, Water, and Grass. I'm so excited to have Volga back on the team, as she's been the MVP of so many games in Milwaukee Metachamps history, and if anybody can maximize her use, it's definitely us. After we picked up Volga, I decided that it was finally time for me to grab the other reason I wanted Psychic Surge Indeedee. While this does repeat a typing, that typing is fighting, and I definitely won't say no to another fighting type to help out Spectrier. Plus, he's super speedy, gives us a valuable ground immunity, and can trigger on Burden with the Psychic Seeds who really claim lives. Everybody, please give a warm welcome to none other than Undertaker the Hawlucha. While on paper Hawlucha's stats are nothing to write home about, the main thing about Hawlucha is the Unburdened ability as stated before, as well as extremely powerful fighting and flying stab, unburden, fast pivoting, and surprisingly decent coverage. I have a feeling that there are going to be people that heavily underestimate this fast flying wrestling pro, and that's exactly what I'm hoping for. I'm very excited about this pick, as I think this mon once again pairs up with Spectrier surprisingly well, and can even cause sweeps if the opportunity shows itself. And now it's time for the final pick of the draft. Since I already kind of spoiled it earlier with Toxapex, this is the other Pokemon I traded away. I originally picked up Dr. Mario, the Probopass, for high defenses, a steel type, another hazard setter, and a slow volt switcher. But then I realized that both Deoxys Defense and Colossal filled these roles extremely well already, and while I would heavily miss having a steel type on this team, Probopass was mostly just going to be a bench warmer this season, so I went ahead and traded them away. And since I originally had one extra Terra point, I decided to make this mon my final Terra Captain, as I've seen the commissioner of the SPDA, Kaz, pop off heavily with this mon as a Terra Captain. Let me introduce you all to Trampoline the Vileplume. Not only does Vileplume provide me with a decently bulky Pokemon, it also provides me a Pokemon that can actually hit decently hard with a base 110 special attack stat. Combine that with moves like Strength Sap, Moonlight and Synthesis, Fairy Coverage, Toxic, Leech Seed, and the ability Effect Spore, and you've got yet another Pokemon that could be extremely hard to take out. Especially if you combine that with their Terra types, which are none other than Terra Poison, Water, and Fire. Terra Poison is there to keep our grounded poison typing, especially since we already have Zarude. Terra Water is there for more defensive coverage, and Terra Fire is there to help our overall team weakness to fire and ice types, as well as perhaps provide some fun strategies that might reveal later on. I have very high hopes for Vileplume, and I'm very excited to use her in these upcoming battles. And that's the full team for the Milwaukee Metachamps debut in the Mudkip division. As a reminder, our week 1 in game will include Toxapex and Probopass over Swampert and Vileplume, but hopefully we won't have to make any more trades, as I really do like the overall synergy of this team and I'm very excited to use it. I'm also very curious to discover if I can harness the true power that Spectrier is capable of, and ultimately prove once and for all this horse is truly mid. Thank you all so much for watching this video. Be looking forward to week 1 of this league coming out on Saturday at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time. And if you'd like to check out our team previews and get our battles a day early, then I encourage you to check out my Ko-fi page down in the description below. There are also multiple other benefits that you could receive if you choose to become a member, and any support that you are able to give is always immensely appreciated. I also wanted to take a quick moment and thank the Commissioner, Muffins, and the mods of the CMM Discord server for giving me a chance to take part in this league, as well as give a quick shout out to all the other coaches in this league. All of their links will be down in the description below. Please be sure to check everybody out and show them support as well. I'm super excited to get to know everybody in this community, and I hope I can provide some exciting and entertaining battles for you all to enjoy. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this video up here. Thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so that you don't miss any of our battles, and I'll see you soon in the next video. Peace out, mates!